that are,
Oh,
I mean.
Well, I probably
I
lost
love it.
150
But
and
we
I
know
still
that you-
probably got.
well, otherwise get a
400.
place on Lake Sakakawea. I mean, if you want no trees. Yeah, right, exactly. Let's get this party started. We're 11 seconds late. Let's go.
Yes, we are. All right. Get my mic. I'm going to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for November 5th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Arel,
Here.
Budke,
Here.
Clava, Holt,
Here.
Matson, Reichert,
Here.
Sandy, Waswick.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Reading and approval from the minutes from the October 1st meeting. Mr. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert, second by Mr. Budke. Any further discussion on the minutes? Not seeing any hands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting minutes are approved as submitted. Public hearings, final approvals, petitions, and minor changes. 3-1.
Item 3-1, replat of Lot B of the replat of Block 1, Southern Estates 6th Edition, located at 2601 45th Avenue South.
All right, Ms. Grasser.
Good evening. So this replat we have in front of you, they're splitting the one lot currently into 5 different lots. You can see here lot 1, block 1 will be the common space with the stormwater pond and the ingress and egress here. And they are just doing that so that they have the potential to sell or rent out these properties. Currently, it's all under construction. They're being built right now. They're not changing any easements and they're not changing their access control, and we are recommending approval.
All right, this is a public hearing. Anybody from the commission have any questions before I open that up? Seeing no hands, I'll open a public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to address 3-1, please come forward at this time. Seeing nobody, close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert,
Second.
second by Mr. Holt. Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 3-1 passes unanimously. 3-2.
Item 3-2, variance to subdivision regulations access control, located at 1660 South 42nd Street.
Ms. Grasser again.
All right, so for this one, here is 42nd and here is 17th. This was the future site of the Children's Museum. Their request is to move the access control that has currently been platted westbound a little bit and then widening that entrance from 21 to 26 feet in width. This is just a better layout, pulls it away from that intersection, and it goes better with that layout and turn radius for the drop off. We have the resolution that goes with it, and staff is recommending approval. I'll stand for any questions.
I'm going to recuse myself. I'm the president of the Children's Museum.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I think we're good enough on that. Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to address 3-2, please come forward at this time. Not seeing anybody, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to us. Move approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Matson. Any further discussion? Not seeing any hands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 3-2 passes unanimously. 3-3.
Item 3-3, replat of Lot F, Block 1, Business Park 3rd Re-subdivision, located at 2601 South 46th Street.
Mr. Brooks.
Oh, let me pull this one up here. Okay, so I think last month we talked about Ideal Aerosmith. They were looking at new land. At that time, they'd actually signed our purchase agreement. This is on the land that's out west of I-29. It's currently a 25-acre parcel. We set this up knowing that we were going to eventually subdivide it. They're looking at Lot M. So we're just following through with our purchase agreement to subdivide that property. It's a simple replat divided into 2 lots. We'll have a 10-acre and a 15-acre. They're purchasing that southern one, the larger one. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Brooks? Pretty straightforward. I will open the public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to step up and address item 3-3, do so at this time. Not seeing anyone, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert, second by Mr. Kleva. Any further discussion? Not seeing any hands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 3-3 passes unanimously. Communications and preliminary approvals.
Item 4.1, ordinance to amend the zoning map to rezone from Greenberg PUD Amendment 5, PUD Commercial B3 to Greenberg PUD Amendment 6, PUD Limited Business B1, located at 3909 South 38th Street.
Ms. Edwardson.
Good evening. So for this property, we're just south of Target. It's just north of the picture here. Aspen Lofts, Latitude Apartments, Furniture Row is off to the west. And so this parcel is currently B3, looking to rezone to B1, just like we recently did for the properties across the way. They're looking to develop multifamily, but the B1 gives them a tish bit more flexibility in terms of impervious. They are asking for a 75% impervious, as well as a 25-foot setback variance. The 25-foot setback matches the existing building setbacks of the multifamily adjacent, so we feel that request to vary that is acceptable and is a good transition. And then the 75% impervious, right now the B3 allows 85%, so it is an overall reduction. Answer any questions.
All right, any questions for Ms. Edwardson? With that, it's on us. Mr. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert. Mr. Holt, I'll give it to you. Second, you were looking for. Second by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4-1 passes unanimously. 4-2.
Item 4.2, ordinance to amend the zoning map to rezone from B3 General Business District to Levers PUD to reduce required parking, located at 715 South Washington Street.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. Here is the old levers. I've been told now by most of my staff, nobody knows what that is anymore. So I apparently show my age with that. But here's 7th Avenue. Yeah, 7th Avenue up here on the north.
Just say Starbucks.
Yeah, to South Washington Streets on the west side. And then over here in the behind here is the seating for the hockey arenas that are, or for the parking for the hockey arenas, and the curling club is just underneath the white piece here, and then tennis courts that you see there. So this long ago, this property was divided up. It was an old grocery store. It's been divided into 3 different parcels, as the staff report kind of lays out, and parking it's probably overparked today by our code, our current code. There is a requirement of 209, I believe, stalls. Currently, it's at a 157. We've already been looking at parking. We know that our parking standards are probably needing to be looked at. We haven't brought forward, I think we talked last month or a few months ago about the multifamily. We brought that forward already. We're going to be bringing forward the commercial. The proposed even that you guys haven't seen, or all of you, I think half of you are on that subcommittee, that would bring down the parking to a lower amount. There'd be about 20 extra on this site. With that, and with what we see in a lot of areas, we're going to start looking at people taking a look at that parking and potential for redevelopment of those parking stalls. That's all good. We're all in agreement with that. We think that makes a lot of sense. And I think the owner, developer in this case, is looking at that potential. They see some access parking and the potential to monetize that for the developer. And that's good from our perspective. It's going to reuse some of the utilities in the area, and provided that we have excess capacity, that all makes sense. Then some of the things that we look at is what's the traffic flow, and how is that going to work with the existing street network that we have, and making sure that our utility plans can be worked together, and those types of things. So in this case, we're looking at just up in this northwest corner of the site. They've kind of looked at that as a potential for a coffee place, and trying to see if that could work there. We've been working with the developer. We've come up with at least the best option, I think, from some of the earlier designs that we had. I'll kind of show what that looks like. So this is that northwest quadrant. As you see on this air photo, there's 2 driveways that were left over from when it was a grocery store. Those have been removed. We did request that those get removed, and just to try to limit probably access to this area, and probably and what our concern is backing up into that right of way. So we're still recommending denial on this one from a staff level. There's still a lot of concern, but I think we've made it the best that we could. So that's kind of what we've looked at in terms of bringing it forward for everybody to take a look at. The thing that's going to be needed from a PUD's perspective, there's still a request for the variance from the parking. So the parking that they would need would be down to 123 stalls. Where normally today is required 209. With our new proposed, it would even be 138. So we still haven't gone through that iteration with everybody and actually changing code, but this would still be short 15 stalls even from that. So there is a concern that staff has in terms of that number of parking. The flow is still a concern a little bit in terms of making sure that we stay out of the right of way. I've had a few conversations with the current 7 Brew that's operating out on 32nd, just in terms of their operation. We've gotten complaints from the public in terms of drive-by. It's backing out onto 38th Street there by Target. Specifically, I've gotten comments on weekends in terms of that traffic flow. And it's been, as it gets closer to lunchtime, there is a restaurant that operates here. I don't know when their busy times are, but certainly that could certainly back into some of those times as well. So staff has a lot of concerns. So those things are the things that we felt like we needed to bring forward as we present this to you as reasons why we're recommending denial on this. Yeah.
That big parking lot that is on the right side of 12th Street that serves Purpur and the curling rink,
Over here. Yeah.
who owns that?
That's Park District.
Park District? And do we allow regular businesses like this to enter into a joint parking arrangement with the Park District? Or
Yeah,
will
and I
they
know
allow that?
there is a representative here, and I think he did run some of those options down in terms of having that discussion of talking with the Park District, but he's certainly here. He can say where he's at with those discussions as well. To do that, though, just so you're aware, that is something that would need to be approved by this body as well.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just was wondering if it's even possible to go with to share parking with a public entity like that.
Yeah, I think there is concern. We'd have to take a look at their overall access parking. And I will tell you that the way our code reads is that would need to be access parking. So we would potentially have to make that a condition of the PUD that would be part of that discussion. If you're going to reduce the amount of parking, that you guys would be okay with that as an option. And then get something written down in terms of what that agreement looked like with that.
And this is going to be a
entity.
permanent, they're proposing a permanent building there, not like a kiosk that could be on a conditional use type of thing or something. Not even if we could. But.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like the old, when those coffee kiosks started, that they were movable. They were,
Right.
I don't want to say a fish house, but they were a little bit more on skids and could be moved around. They had to be permanently plumbed in, but the building itself could move. That iteration is long gone now, and they've been so popular, you're seeing those go to hard structure now.
On something like this,
Can we bring up the rep so we can find
well, I
out?
think maybe a little more discussion than we should. On something like this, I'm struggling with visualizing a Texas Roadhouse, a Chick-fil-A, going through Office Max's parking lot and that just becomes a mess. And said I wouldn't do it again. But that's me. Anybody else, Mr. Budke?
Yep. Ryan, there's quite a bit in the packet about the realignment of, I think it's 8th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
I have to confess that I was not aware of that. Looks like that was some years ago, maybe. I'd heard of levers. I'd not heard of realigning 8th Avenue. I'm
Right.
curious, how serious the city is about that.
Well, we knew that we had to talk about that at least as something that we're looking at. That's not the reason that we're proposing to deny this. I do want to stress that. We have, the DOT's engineering have not gotten into discussions completely with, I don't think in terms of buyouts and those types of things that would need to happen.
Purpose of realignment.
But in this case, you'd see the realignment in this case right here. So this is that, Senex, this location. This is the old Italian Moon site. We would potentially relocate that so you get these across from each other. The problem is those lefts are starting to, the continuous left, if you will, are starting to back into each other and causing issues along South Washington, especially where we have these misalignments at. So
Right.
this particular site is right here, and we would still need to go through that iteration with that property owner in terms of buyouts or what the potential parking situation would be.
I'll just add to that because I do know that engineering did bring forward to committee of the whole to work with DOT for funding to begin that process, though, to take it from a plan to an actual implementation. So they are seeking funding from DOT to do it.
Right, but the last thing you want to do is move another street closer to Demers.
I stopped trying to guess traffic engineering a while ago.
I think the alignment does
Nobody
make
goes,
sense, and
like,
it's
Alex,
it's
nobody
due to
goes
those
from
continuous
8th Street across
lefts.
to 8th.
But again, I want to reiterate, that's not the concern I have is that overall we're under on parking on this site. And even though I know that there's excess parking today, what this would do it would be even below what we're talking about for our future proposal that we're going to bring forward to you. And that's my concern, is that it goes too far in terms of our parking reduction.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Brooks? I mean, if we want to bring the developer up, if you want to come up, sir, you're more than welcome. Like Alex said, maybe we got some questions for you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Matthew Gilbert, 1010 Southwest Freeway, Houston, Texas.
Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time.
So have you looked into that purple lot to the east of the north end of your property for a shared parking arrangement?
Yes, sir, with the Parks Department.
Yeah.
Yes, so we reached out to George, H, I believe is his last name starts with. We requested the opportunity to do a reciprocating cross-access parking. What we proposed would be for only employees of the steakhouse or the Seven Brew to be allowed to park in those spaces. Just about, the time for the peak traffic when seasons are starting. That request was rejected just because for two reasons, is they said that they do anticipate an increase in the use of those facilities for hockey through the season, but they also didn't know what the parking requirement would be.
From 8 to 5, it's busy.
This is gonna, in the morning from 6 to 8, and then again from 4 to.
Fuji's not open and no one's at the gym.
Oh, food.
Exactly. So we did request that. And then the second reason that I couldn't request an exact, like I just found out it's going to be 15 spaces short that we're kind of talking about, is because I just haven't been privy to that information on what we're looking at reducing the parking requirements in the city of Grand Forks for. But yes, I did reach out to the Parks Department. I did request, some sort of parking, if we ever had overflow parking, if we could, rent them on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. We're amenable to that, but it was rejected by George.
Is there parking, on-street parking on 12th Street behind everything here? That street that goes up and down?
I don't know if there is.
On the Yali Street.
On one side at most would be my assumption, but.
And if I could just clarify or add just a little bit, Mr. Brooks, you did an amazing job, and thank you for presenting my case. The way that we are kind of looking at it is, we know that we've got an existing Seven Brew in Grand Forks, and as a great of a blessing as it is, that stand is just too busy. We've done a lot of things in the Grand Forks with marketing hours. We used to do like a peak free drinks for 1 hour. We found out there, I was on site last time I was up here, you know, there was like a mile of traffic stacked up trying to get to there. So we've gotten rid of like the peak hour drink sales. We do it, you know, for 12 hours instead of 1 hour, which is really helping traffic. But the biggest reason that this site is so attractive to Seven Brew is because whenever a customer comes to our sites, we ping their cell phone data. Whenever you sign up for rewards, you know, you put your address in there, and that all creates a tracer data to see where these customers are coming from. And once you plug that in, a lot of the customers are coming from this side of the city, coming up South Washington, you know, to drives right past this site before they can get to the other Seven Brew. And so when we're looking at different locations along South Washington, unfortunately, we don't own all the real estate. That'd be great if we did. And so we've looked at many different sites that kind of would make economic sense, but also would help fix the issues that we have at the existing Seven Brew, bringing customers, you know, to this location instead of the other one to try to divide up the traffic. And this location works really, really good. As Mr. Brooks mentioned, this site right now is two lots legally. It will become 3 lots with the lease. The southern lot is the daycare, which requires 8 parking spaces, and then the gym, 24-hour fitness or Planet Fitness, that requires 84 parking spaces. If you look at the parking layout that we had presented, you'll see that there's 56 near side parking spaces for. So the gym and the daycare requires 64 spaces. The parking spaces immediately in front of the gym and the daycare, we've got about 106 spaces there. And then the remainder of the spaces are going to be on the north side of the Fuji restaurant, which requires 107 spaces. That 107 space requirement is calculated by taking the gross square foot of the restaurant and then multiplying it by the requirement for parking spaces per seat. We're not breaking out, you know, the dining room. So the parking spaces required for the Fuji Steakhouse alone exceed the seating capacity of the restaurant, right? And so that's assuming that everybody comes to the steakhouse. You take your wife or whatever. We drive separate cars. We ask our daughter from college. She drives her own car. That's just not how it works, right? So if you look at the area where we're proposing to put the Seven Brew, there's 18-wheeler storage there. I mean, the parking lot, I was just by there this afternoon looking at traffic. There was 2 cars parked on that northern side where the steakhouse is, and there's like maybe 7 cars that are all employees that park adjacent to that northern side of the building. And so what we're looking for with the developer is just coming into understanding the city knows, hey, we're overparked in the city by a lot, and we're losing a lot of opportunities for jobs and retail and tax dollars, right? So we found this location. We've worked with the developer who their best interest is to make sure the Fuji Steakhouse has plenty of parking. And so, you know, I think that this situation, while it looks scary on paper, at the end of the day, we're looking at taking 15 spaces for a vacant parking lot to add a business into the city and to help the existing issue that we have with the existing Seven Brew. And the other thing that I want to talk about and discuss briefly, I'm not a traffic engineer, by full disclosure, I'm a civil engineer. I didn't pass that class. You know, we're increasing the pervious cover of this site. So when you pull up our site plan, where the existing monument sign is, we're adding that. It's all going to be green and landscape space, kind of to the plan left, plan west of our cars. And that's all going to be green landscape space to try to also beautify this corner to help traffic patterns. Right now, there's a monument sign. If cars are parked in those spaces, you can't really see people that are coming out on 7th. The traffic is ugly. So we're not looking just to put a business into this parking lot. We're looking to really improve this corner and improve that corner for the intersection of the city. Like Ryan said, we removed the adjacent or the access parking off of 8th Avenue, and we're proposing to route it down through, I believe that was 12th Avenue.
12th Street.
Yeah, 12th Street on the backside. The red arrows are going to be the average everyday parking flow. And if you look at the cars that we're stacking just in our lease, and then the cars that would be stacked kind of in the back of the parking lot, that's more stacking that we have at the existing Seven Brew, and that's more customer turn that we would ever have. And so I think that, you know, stacking in that, backing up in that parking lot, backing up into South Washington, I don't think that would ever happen. I mean, that's a lot of stacking. And at that point, customers are probably going to leave regardless. So I think that we've looked at, you know, single access point off of 12th, you know, for customers to come into the back so they're not commingling with the cars that are going into the daycare or the gym. We've addressed the parking spaces. Again, this is an old corner that is not used, and we're just asking for 15 spaces here. And then, you know, increasing the pervious cover to try to beautify that corner is kind of what we're looking for here. So we're looking at investing in the community and not just, you know, plopping down a coffee shop to make a couple of quick bucks.
Ryan, I'll confess, I was focused on the parking side of this. Is there anything else about the PUD that you don't like?
It's the parking, right? Okay. It's, you know, I agree that we're going to get more green space here than was there before. It's the parking. It's overall, the whole site, it was going to be underparked. I agree today it's overparked. I think this is going to take it too far. And it isn't just in terms of stacking with the coffee. It's, you know, even if you go back, I hadn't noticed this before, but as I pulled up that Google map here, you're going to have I don't know what time of day this was, but that this air photo was taken. But, you know, clearly this is all taken care of probably by Planet Fitness and a few by Daycare. Fuji's, once that opens, you know, that's going to need the parking as well. And then you're going to have this area here is going to get taken up by coffee. So it's concern. And then even that stacking, it's going to be blocking some people trying to get in and out of the stalls in this area here. So that's just our overall concern.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move approval. I think that this is a great use of this property. I love the fact that they're doing that green space. It's going to take pressure off of that Starbucks that's just north of there, which is a mess. There is zero traffic in this area. I drive down A Street constantly. I'm going to say a lot here in my motion. I'm sorry. That's my motion. I'll also say moving 8th would be one of the most colossal mistakes we could make. Nobody ever continues on 8th. There is absolutely no reason to continue on 8th. So if you want to move 8th up 10 feet and spend millions of dollars for nothing, but I'm also incredibly disappointed with the Park District that they were not more receptive to you. And I think that is ridiculous that they don't want to play ball, because there is a huge difference in when that facility is used and when this is used. There is plenty of parking, and I think that financial conditions, if they want to sell this, and they can't, and they want to put in a business that's going to need more parking, they'll have to deal with that. But I think that this is a good use of property, and I think we should do it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Mattson, I saw first. I'll give him.
Just a quick question on Washington. A lot of times we see, like, further south where there's additional frontage needed, like the signs have to be set back and everything. Is there any potential of Washington ever being widened to the east there, where you would lose, say, that drive lane along the parking to the west of the parking stalls there?
Well, not according to Alex, what he just said, but I think what I think I need to talk about overall is, you know, one of the concerns, it isn't that people are going to cross over 8th. It's that stacking left. So as somebody turns, you know, southbound, taking a left and then eastbound on 8th, and then somebody heading north and then taking a turn left to go west onto 8th, that's the stacking period. That's the reason that we want to line those up. In terms of widening this out, I'm not aware of whether that would be needed, but I can take a look at that. I don't think.
I just see you have that northbound arrow there, you know, and
Yeah,
that.
I don't think this was proposing taking out any.
If you take that much off of that parking lot, I'm a hard no on this. You know, if that 8th is ever going to get straightened out or whatever.
The other thing I'd say,
It
take
isn't
that
gonna
loading
work.
dock out of the east side of the old grocery store and make parking spots there.
Yes, sir. So we sell coffee. There's a small mark.
I'll talk to the levers and
And if I could just,
Whoa. Let's not talk about small markups on coffee.
so
I know how much it takes to make it.
By the time it trickles down to real estate, no. But in all seriousness, if I could respond to the widening of not of 8th Street, but we have.
Hold on, we don't even have a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we're, Mr. Butchie.
I'll second the motion.
Make your comments later.
Yeah, if I could comment later, but maybe this gentleman.
Oh, I was just answering Mr. Mattson's question. I'm sorry.
Mr. Butchie, you had comments?
Well, I think
Or,
he was letting them talk.
okay, I thought they were done.
Oh, okay. No, I was just going to say that with the widening, that whenever we met with the DOT to talk about utilities and stuff, they hadn't any plans of widening Washington. So I just wanted to respond to your question. Yes, sir.
I just know reducing parking gets us in trouble every time. Softball complex. Mr. Budke, you had a comment?
UND, you didn't see it there.
I did. I said no. Are you kidding? I got more money in parking tickets than coffee with 2 kids going there.
So, just a couple of comments. When it comes to the overall parking, Alex, I agree with you. Though I'm perhaps a little bit more lukewarm on this. My reasoning is not so much on the parking, but actually on the land use. So I'll speak frankly here. That no judgment, but a drive-through coffee, I don't consider that incredible land use for this location, but I understand it. And relative to what we're dealing with right now, which is literally a blacktop on a 100% of the lot, I mean, that is as bad as it could be. Like that's the lowest. So I think that in terms of parking, I don't share the concerns, especially if, I think the staff report laying out the counts was describing, it was tallying, correct me if I'm wrong here, it was tallying if the 8th Avenue was realigned, and that was factoring, no?
No, even with our new proposed, we would still be under 15. I separated out, I didn't even account for the potential loss of the realignment of 8th. We're under by 15 on that new proposed code that we haven't even brought forward yet.
Right.
So under the old code, which we're going by now, I mean, we can't say maybes.
Yeah,
We're way under.
correct.
And whenever that code gets adopted, if it gets adopted, then we're still
This would be under, it can be done through the PUD, but we do look at what the standard is and where we're sitting.
One more comment. I think the strength of this is really that we're taking an overparked site, we're adding an outbuilding to it, right? We've talked, Ryan, in other contexts about other sites that would benefit from a treatment similar to this.
Correct, yeah.
And so I guess maybe a question to you is like, isn't this what we're looking for? Like, at what point would a proposal like this satisfy, if not this?
I'm still looking at making sure that we're still providing enough parking on the site that we, if it was a smaller piece, if we're taking a smaller section and still had more stalls on there, then it would be enough. But this one, although I do agree that there's excess parking here for sure. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, but that doesn't mean that we still have to be conscious of how much we take out before we end up having a problem.
codes are in place for a reason, and we got to follow. I mean, my mind is, yeah, we can deviate, but at some point we got to follow something. Miss Harrell, please.
Go back to your comment about the parking spots that we're requiring exceed the seating capacity at Fuji.
Oh, yes, ma'am. So if you look at the code, and I've got my laptop here, so I'm scrolling back up to
You're
that
fine.
page. So the Fuji Steakhouse, the entire steakhouse is 7,996 square feet, right? And so that's not broken out between dining room, restroom, kitchen, hallway, cleaning, storage area. That's just a gross square foot of the restaurant times 75, one parking space for every 75 square feet of restaurant space, right? And so if you look at the dining room area, Fuji Steakhouse, they don't have 107 seats in their dining room. And so with them, like I'm saying, a lot of times in parking codes, I see, they'll delineate, between dining room area, restroom, kitchen, staff for restaurants. Well, this code is unique in the way that it just accounts for the total gross area of square footage. And so just for the Fuji Steakhouse alone, which is really the tipping point for this development, there's 107 stalls required just for the steakhouse. And so if you look at the steakhouse, even though you've heard you don't build a church for Sunday, for Easter Sunday, this parking lot is built for the grand opening day of Fuji Steakhouse, in the sense that those parking spaces are never used, to where, you know, the owner of the property has agreed to let us take those spaces away from the steakhouse, as well as his tenant, the Fuji Steakhouse, realizes that we'll never have that many cars parked here, you know. And then the second thing to further outline that is, whenever you have peak flows in coffee, like Mr. Brooks commented that on Saturday we're having a lot of issues with high traffic. Well, the daycare is not even open at that time on Saturdays. On Sundays they're closed, and so we're looking at it as, you know, we want to make sure that we're proposing a building and development somewhere that works for everybody, just as much as the city. But you know, requiring this many parking spaces for businesses on days that they're not even open to prohibit, you know, a business that could benefit everybody is kind of how we're looking at it. Is why we're proposing the PUD to just share those parking spaces when they're needed.
And I can probably add a little bit of context to this too. Our First Community Credit Union branch is right next to Seven Brew. We consider them a great neighbor of ours. And really the parking just comes down to just employee parking. Correct me if I'm wrong, the Seven Brew in Grand Forks is like the only Seven Brew that has the ability to actually walk in to place an order and, you know, kind of take a little bit of time to get that essentially. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the Seven Brew in Grand Forks is not, you know, the prototype building. That is a made to fit kind of building, and it had a walk up window. This building, again, we don't serve any food. It's strictly drinks. Your order is taken, you know, as soon as you enter the drive through. So that way those cars are moving quickly. There's no parking. There's no walk up. There's no places for the customers to sit and drink their coffee. It's 100% drive through drink service only.
Yeah. So like from my perspective, again, and we see it every day, and it's awesome that it's busy. It's great to see that. To me, it's more about the drive-through traffic and the kind of the flow of that versus any kind of parking spots. Yeah, parking really is very minimal for a Seven Brew outside of just a few employee vehicles. So
Exactly.
to me, I think this is a great addition to Grand Forks. I think it's a great use of the space. Like you said, it'll take pressure off to the current Seven Brew that's open right now. So I'm in favor.
I just have to comment, you know, I drive by this building every morning on the way to work. It's, I looked at it Monday night because knew we were going to be talking about this, and the parking lot was full. It was full all the way down to Starbucks. And this isn't resolutionist season. You hit January 2nd and that lot, they're parked every which way on the street, out, you name it. The left-hand turns that Ryan brought up, you know, I'm trying to take a left-hand turn to go west on Demers. Everyone else is trying to take a left-hand turn coming south on Washington to get into a coffee shop. Now there'll be 2 coffee shops there. I personally have concerns with it. Just I think we're short on parking there at certain times of the year, and we have to follow the regs that are in place right now. So I won't be supporting this.
Well said. Anything else? Anybody else? With that, I think I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I
Aye. I don't think we need a roll call. I think you got it.
I think we got 2 nays. Just let us know if there's anybody else. Okay. This will move on to city council and then be back for final next month. And this does need a supermajority at council for final. So we'll go through that with Matt later. So
Ryan, is
Okay.
there a reason that we didn't just wait or change the parking requirement on this particular, as opposed to doing a whole PUD for it?
well, they were still going to be short even with the new
Right,
proposal.
Can we waive some of that or no?
Yeah, we could. And that's what we're doing here. They're putting it into a
Without
PUD.
doing a whole PUD.
Even if we do the new parking code, they're still short by 15.
I understand that.
So they would have needed to go through that anyway. The PUD is going to be required regardless.
That's what I said. We can't just give them a variance on a B3.
I don't know if we've done parking variance at this body anyway, for something like this, but
It seems
And-
cumbersome to use a PUD for such
and
a
I
small change, you know?
understand.
I have another just quick question is related to Fuji and the parking spots. I'm not in the parking committee. Is that the way all the parking spots work? Like I see it, like the grocery store for the parking spots being needed, but a grocery store, when you do separate out seating versus,
The proposal that's coming forward is taking that out, so.
perfect.
Yep,
Okay,
I understand.
makes sense. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Parking today. Reports from, oh, we got
One more.
one more. 4-3.
Item 4.3, replat of Lot 1, Block 1, Auditor Subdivision Number 26, located at 3900 4200 block of 17th Avenue South.
Mr. Brooks.
Last month or the month before, this is the Burkholz is just to the south of here. Here's Armstrong Court. The city lots up to the north here, this was that drainage ditch that's just on the south side of 17th. Here's the Children's Museum site is just right here. This is a city lot. We're just matching up the right of way here because we want to have that right of way going across and connecting up. So it's a simple piece from our perspective, but since it is going through right of way, it goes through the long form. So you'll have this preliminary this month and then final next month. So happy to stand for any questions, but we see it as a pretty simple deal matching up the right of way.
Again?
We'll need to see, we should have a motion for the record and then a second to recuse them.
Move approval. Second. All those in favor? Recusing Alex, aye. There you go. You're recused. Okay, with that,
Move approval of
move approval.
4-3.
Second.
Second by Mr. Holt. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion to put Alex back in the game. All right. Yeah, exactly. Reports from the planning department. Ms. Edwardson.
Perfect. So first up tonight is the missing middle code audit. We've talked about this for a couple of months now. And as you know, nationally, housing is a big discussion. A lot of factors go into housing, financing, workforce, materials. I don't know that I'm going to start over, but we've been talking about housing for a while. We've done some lot tests last fall to discuss kind of testing our code, see where things might be questionable or not. We kind of about the same time last fall got partnered up with ARP North Dakota. They did a state presentation at the North Dakota Planning Association conference and are certainly advocating highly for missing middle in the sense that advocating for housing choice and just different opportunities aside from your traditional single family detached and your big box multifamily and whether or not our code would allow it or not, right? And so ARP certainly has been a great partner so far. They brought us a presentation this past January with Samar and the government affairs indicating benefits of missing middle. Legislative session got into full bore after that. Did some advocacy for some housing stuff at that level. State of North Dakota put out 35 million supporting housing this year, or allocated it to it, which is great. Majority of that is going to Housing Incentive Fund. I looked up today, Grand Forks has 5 applications in for that competitive process out of 23. So we hope to see some multifamily awarded some HIF funds to hit that affordability piece. The remaining 10 million of that state allocation is going to go to homelessness assistance and shelters, which is also great. But AARP has been a huge partner in all of that, as well as we've stayed in touch through all of these different housing touch points. And Josh Aspig and Janelle Moose put in a request for Grand Forks to have a code audit through AARP's Livable Communities Technical Advisor Program. And that's just a supportive program to kind of help communities see where they do have gaps in their codes. Where can you make things more flexible? Not to say that everybody's going to drop everything and stop building single family detached. But if our zoning code doesn't even allow housing choice, it can't be built no matter what. So we had that great opportunity through AARP to get partnered up with Miss Elizabeth Decker. I'll kick it over to her to kind of give an introduction, and hopefully she can share her slides and step through it, but let me know if it doesn't work. So.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Andrea, and good evening. Thank you for having me here in Grand Forks. Nice to virtually meet you as a commission. As Andrea mentioned, I am sorry, just getting this going. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, we can.
Okay, great. I am a land use planner. My name's Elizabeth Decker. I have my own firm called Jet Planning based in Oregon. And I've been working with ARP for over 5 years now, doing these livable communities projects. We jokingly like to call it like SWAT team projects because we get to come in and get to know a community on a very targeted project and provide some technical assistance as part of a matchmaking process that's facilitated by ARP in North Dakota. This is my third project in North Dakota, but I've worked in states across the US through that program. And directly with jurisdictions that are interested in middle housing, primarily some ADUs, some other zoning code residential issues that I've gotten involved with. But it's a really interesting matchmaking process and has been really interesting for me to get to engage with different communities and sort of hear what the issues are and, give some perspective on what I've seen through my zoning code work, which is the heart of my practice, doing code audits, code updates, and code implementation for cities, primarily in Oregon, but now increasingly around the country. So I've done a lot of middle housing work in different jurisdictions and different sort of local goals that they're trying to implement. So it's really exciting to come to talk to you and give you some initial impressions that are a blend of, my own knowledge of middle housing, some initial analysis of your plans and regulations, and some best practices that ARP has put together along with some other partners that I've worked with about how to make middle housing regulations more successful. So I believe that I have worked closely with Josh Aswig, as Andrea mentioned, and Janelle Moose with ARP North Dakota. They helped match us up. I believe they're listening in on the call today, but they wanted to spend all the time talking about middle housing and let me go ahead. So I am here to talk to you about middle housing and build on those discussions. As Andrea mentioned, she shared the lot tests and the initial conversations you'd had last year, as well as the presentation from Samar earlier this year. So this work really began out of that interest to be a little bit more focused, digging into that code to see, what's the status today in terms of what middle housing is or isn't permitted, and what are some opportunities to expand that, to have more housing choices. Where would those opportunities, what might it look like to think about the future? So I think that's it. Any questions about background or sort of how I wound up in front of you this evening?
We're good.
We're good.
Okay, great. Well, let's get right into it. So for tonight, wanted to give you, a quick overview of the analysis and a little background on middle housing, although I know you've heard some of the basics already. Spend most of the time talking about the analysis findings, wrap up with sort of my summary of what are some opportunities that stand out to me, and then open it up. Happy to, really engage with some questions and discussion about what your impressions are, what your questions might be about, how does this line up with some other priorities in the community, or how might you do X, Y, or Z. So looking forward to that discussion. And, just want to caveat that these are really my opinions as a land use planner, again, based on my zoning expertise, as well as some of these best practices that are emerging around middle housing. But I am relatively new to the Grand Forks Code. So if Andrea's been really helpful in giving me some background and reviewing the work, but certainly there are pieces of the regulations and the context that you are better experts on. And so bringing that information together to support your, as you're continuing to look at middle housing, will be really important to sort of translate some of these opportunities to the local context. All right, so in terms of overview, we set out talking with ARP North Dakota and then with Andrea and some of your other city staff to identify the goals for this analysis. As this, SWAT team, it is a relatively focused engagement. And so we wanted to identify the top priorities, which emerged as analyzing the city's, the existing context in terms of housing that's available, as well as housing needs, long-range plans, as well as development regulations. So really digging into the code the zoning code, I should say, to identify the obstacles and opportunities for middle housing that currently exist. And we identified a focus on accessory dwelling units, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhouses, and cottage clusters for this project. And then I moved forward in that work using the city documents. Andrea was really helpful in giving me an example, some of the projects that you just heard tonight, giving me some recent examples of residential projects and some analysis about variances and key issues that have come up, as well as what some of the existing housing types are. And so I was able to take
Elizabeth, this is Alex Reichert, a member of the committee. I was just wondering, have you, in your analysis, these pictures that you have up here, have you looked at why those aren't being built? Because it's a common it's a belief by many on this committee that it's because of some of our fire inspection requirements. Did you look at any of that stuff at all?
Yeah, I can say I did not look at building code or fire code as part of this work. So this work really started and focused in on the zoning code. And so
because we realize, we've had a lot of these presentations and we realize that these would sure be nice. I was just telling our chairman that it'd be great to have these, but they're unaffordable to build here because of the codes. So I'm wondering if you have any suggestions in that area.
Yeah, gosh, you're getting right into the heart of the complexities around middle housing, right?
Yeah, we've got the basics. We need to pick your brain.
Yeah, no, great. I think you're exactly right that there are multiple layers of regulations and multiple reasons why it's difficult to build middle housing, some of which are, more acute in certain areas. I'm not familiar with your building code and fire code, but certainly I know in a lot of places I've worked, 1 or 2 family dwellings are under a residential code, and then you get kicked to a commercial code that is just triggers fire sprinklers and all this, and is a lot more difficult to build. And some states have worked on trying to reclassify, say 3 and 4 unit buildings into that residential code. But it just points to there are multiple steps that have to be taken in order to really make middle housing more feasible. And that's on the public side, right? Then, I could give you a secondary presentation about the financial side and the banks, and why, lending for some projects is more difficult than others, and why we see so much single family and why we see so much larger multifamily, because that's where the money is.
Well, I would invite you to use your time to do that, to get into the complexities, because this body has heard this speech that you're about to give us about 6 times. So if you've got some deeper stuff, that'd be great.
I think the only reason I'll couch that on too is that part of it is doing what you can within your purview, right? And so within the purview of the land development code, we administer that through our office, right? And so I want to be able to say that our code, we've done everything possible to update our code to make something that this community, this body, this council deems appropriate for our community is set there, because I can't have like an internal discussion with a separate department if I haven't already addressed my lane, right? And so part of it is setting up the zoning code and saying the community wants to see these types of housing, yes or no, and then saying, okay, let's take that to the next level. We've addressed this regulatory barrier. What's the next one? And so that's part of our context here about why we're focusing specifically on zoning, to be able to then put pressure elsewhere once that's fixed.
And I understand that. And I have to, I'll applaud you guys on what you're doing. It's been great. And I know that you're working. The point I'm making to her is, we're obviously paying her to be here. Let's use her for something that we can all benefit from. We understand the problem. We understand what a duplex and a triplex and a fourplex is.
Sure.
But there are more complicated issues on the zoning. I'd love to hear what she's seen going around the country. And we have limited time. So
sure. If you want to.
I'm taking up most of it, and I apologize for that. And I'm making everyone stay longer, but that's just a thought.
Sure, Elizabeth, if you're comfortable jumping maybe the background context and getting right into the thick of it, that sounds good.
Yeah, let's get right into it. And I also just one clarification, Commissioner, that this project is grant funded by AARP North Dakota. And so there is no charge to the city to participate in this project.
We're still paying for it. Let's just keep it straight.
There's still staff time, but
We're still paying for it.
Great. So this is, I call this the beauty pageant, going through the different middle housing types. I understand you've had this, so we'll just move straight into this. And I believe you've heard some of the benefits. I don't need to convince you. So let's dig right into the analysis. And I think that you're right on that there are multiple layers of regulations, but as Andrea was saying, there are definitely some initial steps that the city can take. Because there are very limited opportunities in the city's zoning code right now for middle housing. And so even if the fire code issue were changed, it still wouldn't be permitted on the majority of lots in Grand Forks. So there's some opportunities here that we can talk about. So I think you understand the context. I think we're all living in, whether it's in Grand Forks or here in Portland, Oregon, rents and housing costs, but specific in Grand Forks, are rising faster than incomes. There's, the majority of housing is single detached, with all the majority of the land, residential land zoned R1. And there's lots of different groups that could benefit from smaller or less expensive housing options, particularly students and young professionals. So when we look at the city's long range plans, I'd say, for the most part, these are in good shape. The city's 2050 land use plan has policies that are supportive of. They may not be very specific about middle housing, but there's a lot of discussion, the different livability principles about equitable, affordable housing, supporting communities and neighborhoods, and really explicitly linking housing opportunities to economic development goals. And so I think, and that's a theme that is very much reflected at the state level as well, in terms of work that's been done on state level housing needs, and some of the housing package in the last legislative session. So understand that it seems to be a compelling rationale that hopefully can help move forward some of this middle housing if you feel that is something suited to your community. So the heart of my work, really the expertise that I bring to you, is looking at the development regulations. So your land development code in chapter 18, the work focused on these 5 residential districts that make up the majority of residential land. Certainly R1 is the majority of land that's zoned, mostly single detached. R2, 1 and 2, how these districts work. And then also understanding the planned unit development zones that have been applied both in, new development greenfield areas, as well as specific infill projects, and the PUD zones, having the variety to reflect the different scale of the R1 through 4 zones. So those were the zones that we focused on for the project. And so when we talk about, if somebody showed up today wanting to build a complex or other middle housing type, just the initial analysis is pretty, straightforward, that there are limited opportunities right now for some of these middle housing types. In particular, accessory dwelling units aren't permitted anywhere. Cottage clusters aren't permitted anywhere where you have multiple small homes around, common green space. There's limited opportunities for triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses. And so, the number one biggest opportunity for the city to consider is, are there more housing types that could be permitted in more zones, particularly introducing those ADUs, triplexes, fourplexes, and cottage clusters. A few other, and then I'll say all of this is pulled from the longer report that's included in your packet. I wanted to hit just some of the highlights rather than, read a report to you online, which and nobody needs that bedtime reading. So next area that I really wanted to highlight was some of the dimensional standards really right now don't set up the opportunities for middle housing very well. So there are opportunities, I think, to adjust, particularly the minimum lot area, to start there and to scale those so that they provide more of a gradation of scale by zone rather than housing type. So right now you'll see that, single family homes are 6,000 square foot minimum in R2, University District, R3 and R4, even though R4 is significantly more dense, allows a much greater variety of housing up to 50 units per acre, you'd still have to use that 6,000 square foot lot for a single family. So there could be some real opportunities to scale, to set a minimum lot size that better reflects the scale of each district. And then allow more housing types on the same size lot within each lot. So when you have a district like the R2 where it's 6,000 for single family and 7,000 for a two family, if I have an infill lot and it happens to be a 6,000 square foot lot, I now don't have the ability to put a duplex on it because it's not very easy to go out and find an extra 1,000 square feet. So then I'm in the variance process or the PUD process or some other discretionary process to try to do that, to add that middle housing. So the more middle housing types that are permitted, that can be permitted on the same size lot, just dramatically increases the number of eligible lots for those new middle housing types. So that can be a really powerful change, just to expand where those housing types can be permitted, rather than having to make a decision up front when the lots are created. I think you've probably heard a lot of requests to make variances to the maximum impervious surface coverage, which varies across these zones. I didn't include all the details on this slide, but it is all in the report. So I'd say just across the board, looking at opportunities to increase maximum impervious surface coverage for residential uses can be a tool that allows more middle housing, particularly if you're trying to get, say, a quadplex on a lot. It's still going to be, a house size building, but it might need to be 10%, 20% bigger than a single family home. And so just having a little bit more flexibility with that surface coverage can really make the difference, particularly if you're trying to get units that are larger than a single bedroom. If you're looking to get 2 or 3 bedroom units, that can meet some of those household needs that we talked about up front, that you're aware folks in your community are looking for housing. Another thing that really stood out in your code, and frankly, it was so complex, it didn't fit well on a slide. It's in the report, but the setback requirements, I understand those have been recently amended to simplify it somewhat from the percentages down to a few tiers of setbacks. But, having consistent setbacks within a zone rather than varying the setbacks based on the width of the lots could really allow for just ease of implementation, greater flexibility in where those buildings get sited on a lot. And particularly there's the 20-foot rear setbacks. While that can provide some open space and some other flexibility on the site, that area can also really limit the ability to site something like an ADU within the rear setback. There's a lot of probably R1 properties that have an ample backyard, would have plenty of room for an ADU. Right now, they're eligible to put an accessory structure like a garage in that space under the code, but not any occupied building. And so if the structure could go there, I think it's worth having a community conversation about, could that same scale of structure, probably a lower height limit or still some setbacks there, what could the community be comfortable with permitting in those rear setbacks if it increased the flexibility and opportunity for greater variety of housing? And I know you just had a conversation about parking on the commercial side, and that there's a broader discussion going on about updating the city's parking standards. So I'm not sure where you've landed or what you're considering for the residential parking changes to the base residential parking standards, but these are the code's current standards. And I'll just note that, based on some, nationally, they're on the higher side. There's definitely increasing discussion about bringing parking minimums down and having more flexibility, right, for each lot. One thing that also stands out in the Grand Forks Code is that for a single family, detached, and 2-family, there's the base requirements. But then if it's used as a rental, there's a higher requirement. And so given that the home is going to be built with however much parking it is, having a different standard can really limit how the home can be used down the road, potentially. I mean, I'd be curious to hear your reflections, but just reading from the code, that does seem like it could be a challenge. And it makes it harder for a building to have that 100-year lifespan and have more flexibility for how the owners choose to use it over time. So having a similar, having the same parking standard, regardless of whether it's owned or rented, and I do understand there's some university student concerns around that maybe this came out of, but finding a parking standard that everyone can live with could be really important to increase flexibility down the line. And I'd say that the emerging best practice for middle housing in particular, when you're trying to get 2, 3, 4 units on a single family, what's thought of as a single family lot, is moving closer to one space per dwelling can really facilitate having enough space left on that lot for the actual dwellings,
Not a chance.
rather than the current. Most of these are practically one space per bedroom, and that makes it pretty difficult to fit as much parking on the site as would be required. So high level, that's the biggest code analysis that I see, and adding that all up, for discussion purposes, identified, sort of the 7 biggest opportunities that I see, based on the code as I'm reading it. Please keep in mind, this is my first opportunity working in Grand Forks. And so you all are experts and can sort of right size these for your community. But 7 things to consider, in any mix of these things. I think first would be allowing accessory dwelling units outright in the R1 zone is, what we sometimes call a gateway drug, right? It's a relatively low lift. It adds a lot of flexibility for existing homeowners for how they can use their properties. And it's not a major change in scale. But yet it really, if that's 70% of the land that's zoned R1 currently in the city, that's 70% of the city that now has the opportunity to consider this. You wouldn't expect a large percentage to take you up on the offer. There's still other things that go into a homeowner's decision whether or not to add an ADU, but it does really open up some broad opportunities and helps folks get used to the idea of, hey, maybe we could have more than one dwelling per lot, and it could, benefit homeowners and residents and citizens alike. These are, roughly in increasing order of impact, but not precisely. Another one to consider is thinking about, we were talking about the different lot sizes. So allowing 2-family homes on the same size lots as single family in both the R2 and University District zones really could just open up the number of lots that are eligible for those duplexes in a zone in those 2 zones where they're already permitted. So that could be an opportunity as well. And then considering how open and what you think the community is interested in, considering triplexes, fourplexes, and townhouses on those similar size lots in those zones as well could also be a powerful step. Moving on to the R3 zone, right? So that zone actually, currently has a 16 unit per acre maximum density. So that's a scale that's really compatible with a lot of these middle housing types we're talking about. And yet right now the 6,000 square foot minimum lot size for single family in that zone really doesn't allow it, developments to achieve that 16 unit per acre kind of scale. And so resizing some of the dimensional standards there, allowing smaller lot sizes for single family, adding more opportunities for middle housing at that scale could really open up the opportunities there where those uses are already permitted. Just a question of getting the dimensions better aligned. Another opportunity is to look at whether cottage housing, which is those smaller homes arranged around the common courtyard, but smaller homes, but at a greater density than comparable, larger size single family detached, whether developing standards for that housing type. And then because of its smaller scale, that can be particularly compatible in the R1 and R2 zones. So thinking about introducing that for those 2 zones. And when you're looking at, both the cottage housing as well as the duplex, triplex, and quadplex, adding some more specificity. Triplexes and quadplexes right now are not defined separately. They're just lumped into multiple family housing. And so it makes it more, a lot of folks hear the word multiple family housing and they have this idea of a much bigger apartment building. And so, introducing more specific use types and standards so that it's clear what the minimum lot sizes and setbacks that are more consistent with single family rather than, sending them down a multiple family path in the R2, R3, and R4 zone could make those uses much more feasible to develop. And then for all of these uses that we're talking about for middle housing, it's going to be really important to continue that discussion you're already having about residential parking minimums. And maybe that's part of, adjusting the standards for single family could help springboard this conversation about minimums for middle housing as well. So part of that conversation you're already having. And then last piece is that the PUDs seem to be used largely within greenfield areas. And so if there is that parallel process right now, the PUDs essentially just say, do what's permitted in the zones unless you propose something else as a developer. But there could be opportunities to rewrite the PUD code to more explicitly say, all of these middle housing types are permitted in the PUDs. It depends also on, how much you permit outright in the base zones, but making it clear where and which housing types are permitted so that they can be more easily incorporated into PUDs. Particularly when you're building, from the ground up, there are more opportunities to fine tune that mix of housing types to build more complete neighborhoods, maybe to get that scale right, to plat those townhouse lots from the beginning. So all those pieces, which points to, how these strategies can really be tailored for both infill scenarios, so some of the older neighborhoods like near north or near south, as well as greenfield contexts. And the strategies might be different for different areas. You could think about something like an overlay zone for certain infill neighborhoods, if there's an idea to sort of try out some of these housing types in a specific geographic context that's more infill focused, where there's more benefits for walkable and transit supported neighborhoods. Or, conversely, the standards might look a little different in a greenfield context where there is that ability to set different minimum lot sizes and to mix housing types within the block and to set it out with some intentionality from the get-go rather than trying to fit within an existing context. So I think that's an important caveat as you're looking at your zoning code opportunities. And then I think finally, I just want to reflect that when you're thinking about code opportunities, there are definitely a lot of case studies emerging in places like Washington, Oregon. Where else was I just reading? Montana just recently passed, statewide mandates, and Maine. So some unusual places have been experimenting with this. And when it comes as more of a mandate and it says do everything in all the places all at once, right? A broader strategy can be more effective, right? You open up 100 opportunities, that's more than opening up 10 opportunities. But I think a lot of communities, particularly when you're growing this opportunity and having this conversation locally with your community, I think that those conversations take the amount of time that they take. And if it means starting with an infill overlay in one area or starting with ADUs, as the first type of middle housing that folks start experimenting with, that can also be a powerful strategy to try something and to keep iterating on that and keep seeing which parts of this worked for our community. Who was able, what are some success stories? What are some concerns maybe that are coming out of the initial implementation? Which pieces of this could go forward? So I think that wherever you start will be right for you. I certainly have done both sets of code updates. On the one hand, the easiest thing to do is to change the words in your zoning code, right? I can write that on paper easily, but the real crucial part of it is walking alongside your community, coming up with something that can be well supported. And so brings me to sort of my final point tonight is just thinking beyond the code, that the technocratic approach to changing the code only succeeds when you have built the community familiarity with and the support for middle housing and the interest that can help propel those code updates forward with sufficient support, and also that will then be used, right? That there's interest to use them. And so there's a lot of education and outreach opportunities. ARP has been, really helping to promote those across the state. Andrea mentioned statewide planning conferences and presentations to individual cities, bringing me here for this kind of a presentation, as well as going out in the community, having more individual, neighborhood by neighborhood conversations, or working with particular groups of stakeholders, whether it's meeting folks at a coffee shop or lots of different forms of education and outreach. Storytelling has been really effective, along with things like walking tours. I loved this infill love letter campaign they did up in Winnipeg, about, just talking about, they sent Valentines to folks with infill homes to just to increase visibility of housing alternatives to single family detached, and multifamily, just to make the middle housing that's there a little bit more visible. Profiles of folks in the community that have tried middle housing, or if there are existing opportunities, and then building those coalitions, starting with yourselves and with other elected officials, local advocacy groups. Of course, ARP North Dakota is going to be there, but groups like transit groups, groups like safe transportation alternatives groups that are advocating for more walkable or transit supported communities can be great partners, as well. And I think an important coalition partner in Grand Forks, since there's such a focus on housing, supporting the economy, is really talking with some of the key businesses, University of North Dakota and folks, and helping build those compelling stories about how this variety of housing could help support economic development, which I think a lot of that work's being done. So I commend you on that. And just would like to turn it over for your discussion and questions at this point.
I'm going to invite you up for a walking tour about mid-January in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Careful, I'll make you go out and walk. So
I think Andrew's in charge.
Yeah. When you got a 30 below zero and a 50 mile an hour wind.
Doesn't stop Andrew.
No, he goes.
all right, any questions?
What do we got? Anybody? Mr. Bud can make it short.
So thank you, Elizabeth. I had a question. Alex, right away, you had pointed out all the different images, right, that are in here. I couldn't help but notice that a lot of them have like a pretty modest front yard. There's no garage in the front, or maybe a couple of them have sort of integrated garages. I'm curious if I guess I'm wondering where the alley fits into all of this. The alley as like a framework device. We rarely see it on new plats, and I guess I'm at the point where I think we should start demanding it and voting against plats that don't have it.
Yeah, I think alleys are really one area where I think it would be important to make a distinction in future middle housing strategies between greenfield development and infill, right? It's pretty hard to do alleys in an infill context. So having a little bit more flexibility there is going to be important about parking. But certainly in those greenfield contexts, there could be ways to write the regulations that tie to these types of middle housing are permitted if it's alley loaded. So that there is more of that incentive. As you're saying, you might not see folks voluntarily come forward with alleys, but if there's a reason that that there's additional development potential and the alley is needed to serve that those two things can move forward together.
Can we even do an alley anymore with the?
We could. I think staff's kicked around the idea of if we do a smaller lot size or a lot frontage, that we would potentially require alleys, given how, if you think about Toby Lane and Luann Street and how that's developed, those don't have on-street parking because the driveways are right next to each other, right? And even if you did a shared driveway, there's still not enough for the light poles, the mailboxes, the on-street parking, the snow storage. However, if we had an alley loaded and they were alley loaded, you would have on-street, you'd have a front yard to have nothing but on-street in the front. So it's definitely a different way of doing it. We certainly have our own internal folks who, maintenance, construction costs. Would it have to be paved? Could it be gravel? Would somebody ever buy a new house with a gravel? I think all of that speaks to affordability and options. If you think about the Thames Court development the Housing Authority did in early 2010s, right? Those five
Promenade and all
plexes.
that.
Yep, Promenade. Those
I was
five
gonna bring that
plexes
up.
were built, but not all of them were built with their detached garages. The homeowner could add, the slab was there, but the homeowner could add a garage. We've had an internal discussion of, to the affordability piece, do you do that now? Our code and market certainly is there to maybe not support that, because you can get a higher markup on a bigger house with a front loaded garage and things like that. But if we are trying to go after some state dollars for affordability or something like that, do we
I
look
was
at
part of
some
that
those?
project on the construction end. And it was a debacle with the grant money, cost more money that they had to put into the thing with all the requirements of just the building and the electrical. And it goes back to Alex's point, it starts there. I mean, you get all the requirements, and that wasn't even the city. It was federally funded. So then you had all those hoops to jump through. So all that meant nothing. It cost them twice as much to build those as it should have. And all the regulations, if we can somehow get rid of that, there's a developer builder here. I mean, do you, how many of these are gonna sell? That's what they're driven off of. Yeah. They're not gonna build what they can't sell. And I know Jenny and Megan have said that a million times. And until we make them affordable, so the price is down there, by ditching some of the regulations, this is a moot point.
Well, except
think-
if you make the, if you
I
drop
like
the land
it.
cost, I mean, we're talking about.
Well, there's
making it
4 guys who
small.
own the land in Grand Forks, or 3. So there's your land cost.
To your point, I think it should be noted that there is a developer here listening to a presentation on maybe our
Absolutely.
weaknesses. And so I think that speaks to the demand and the possibility, for sure.
No, I like it. I like that he's here.
So, Steve, you say there's just a handful of big landowners, and sure, but I think we just saw here that we have a huge percentage of our city's land is zoned R1, and that has no more possibility to intensify, to add housing, to add people. So we
How do you
have.
do that if it's already built?
Well, I get my
When you rebuild, let them put duplexes on there, let them put triplexes on there. I mean.
And then you have the thing full of the neighborhood.
well.
You know what I mean? You got to kind of walk the line a little bit.
Sure. I guess this illustrates to me that we actually have, we can look to more than just 3 or 4 people that own land. We can look to literally hundreds of people
I'm
that own
talking
land in the
open
city.
land where you could put something like this. And you could put a neighborhood of smaller homes with more density that people move into the neighborhood and want to be there.
How about West Elementary, right in the middle of town, not owned by one of those 4 people?
You sure?
That
Better look
you
it
could
up.
have put, you could have put all of these, you could have put 25 of these on there.
I'm all
instead
for
of
it.
4 homes.
I'm all
or
for it.
5 homes,
Yeah.
whatever.
Zoning isn't allowing it right now.
Right.
So
Right.
do we need to take these recommendations as opportunities?
Yeah,
And if that's
right. We're handcuffed.
Do you guys want to turn your mics on?
Turn our mics on.
But what, we've seen, like Alex said, not to be rude, but we've seen the presentation, we've seen the numbers. This committee is very intelligent committee. We know what the problem is. We know the housing. We know what they look like. How do we go forward with the city and the state to get more things we all agree that we want?
Well,
So-
the other thing is we have a consultant here. We've had a vote on ADUs,
Yep.
and maybe we should be just talking, take a minute with somebody like this that says, anybody that's got concerns with ADUs, let's talk about those. Anybody that, supports ADUs, let's talk about, she's got some specific examples for infills that can give us more units, not in the greenfield. I think we spend too much time worrying about the greenfield sometimes.
I would agree.
And these are, there are thousands of homeowners that, could maybe benefit from, I want to turn my house into a duplex. I want to put a Fonzie garage in the back,
It's a great analogy. The Fonzie garage. We all pictured that right there.
That's right.
Yeah, the original ADU proponent.
Yeah. Mr. Budke, you had something else?
Yeah, so just to comment to the planning staff. So Andrea, you talked about kind of what comes first here in terms of the process. I guess I would encourage more of like a full court press here. I think what Elizabeth described, I completely agree with. There are layers to this, right? There is the zoning. That's one piece. There's the building code. We call it code, right? But they're distinct. They are distinct things. The financing is different. Then there's also the public opinion, right? You
I've been
mentioned
on
that,
this
Steve?
committee the longest out of anybody here, and I've seen this place full of people complaining that something was built or somebody changed something next to them. And then you know,
Right.
you still got to deal with that. This is their home. This is their biggest investment on a lot of people. This is their everything. And then you put the Fonzie garage next door with the Harley in the back, and he rumbles in every night. That's living in the back garage. You gotta kind of, like I said, you gotta walk that fine line with it, with infill.
Yeah.
And there's definitely spots for it.
So-
And yeah, West School would have been perfect, but them guys made a pile of money off of that. It's free enterprise too. How do you?
So just
But if they were given this opportunity,
I had to give him a bad
come up
time.
here, come up here. Would you have built a bunch of townhouses in a row on there if we would have let you?
Adam, you want to state your name just
Yeah.
for the record?
Adam Anverina, 6525 Woodcrest Road. I can speak for myself. I have a couple other partners in that project, but we would have built more units there if we could have. We would have built duplexes, fourplexes.
If we could.
Yep, if we could have, we would have.
Yep. And that'd have been a great spot for you.
Yeah.
We knew
And
with
that's
that
what we're talking about
project,
here. That's what Andrew's trying to give us.
if
So how do we get there?
we knew we couldn't have done it there with the zoning codes and everything. So we just,
Didn't bother asking.
yeah. I think we asked, but we were,
Well, the wild card here was the neighborhood, right? You're
Right.
changing a
Yeah.
school to housing development. And I think on that particular project, they were limiting the number of units. But I don't want to dwell on West. Had we been a little bit further from that university neighborhood, I think redeveloping and densifying some areas could really work. And I think, I keep going back to what Elizabeth put on here as her 7 items, I think are really something that we'll start digging into next. And I know we've had the ADU discussion. I always assumed at some point we'd maybe come back to that and have a discussion again at some point and maybe looking at, some guardrails maybe to get everybody comfortable with it. And I think that's maybe something that we need to come up with again and kind of looking at.
We had
some
an
options.
hour-long discussion on when the last deal with the fiveplex or whatever it was and trying to get that. Well, if we're really going to infill, that shouldn't have been a big discussion. But there was homeowners in the audience that pull at your heartstrings and you feel for them. And so I think we got to get to the codes, got to get to the zoning, got to get to where we can change that and work with some of these guys like Adam was good enough to come and sit in on this thing and say, okay, cost wise, what can you build here? Give us a budget. What's it going to cost? These guys know that. We know it. We do it every day. What's this going to cost? What can you sell them for? Yeah.
So I think about the conversation that we just had about the infill where the water treatment plant's going to go, right? You can't build them to be affordable. It's the whole reason that they're not doing it over there is because it's not affordable. They can't make it
No, I
sellable.
agree.
So why are they rentals? Because that's the only way that you can make money, right? So chicken or the egg? The
What do you
80, I mean,
chicken or the egg?
well, so what comes first? How do we can't build them because we can't make them affordable. So how do you start?
Well,
I
you
guess is
start
what,
with making the land more affordable by what we're talking about here. Put more people on less land. That makes your land cheaper. Change your inspections codes so that you can build them without unnecessary safety features that are causing things to go out of control. And that we need to bring the two people together. When are we going to get inspections in on this conversation? We keep talking about that. We have no power over that, as you guys were quick to point out. We can decide how much land you need for each person, but that's about all we can do.
right.
But we keep saying this is multifaceted. We keep talking about the same things. Let's put the builders, the bankers, inspections and planning, and the realtors and Andrew all in the same room. I mean, why is that so hard? Let's not keep having the same conversations.
Right.
I think the underlying piece is that community input, right? That Elizabeth kind of hit on earlier is that, and to Jenny's point of you start them off as a rental so that at some point it does get affordable to be able to buy it outright or something like that. There's also a demographic trend that more people are renting instead of buying outright because financing and different things that are and will do that any local government isn't going to be able to fix because if we could have, so many other communities would have already done it by now. So I think yes, we can certainly get all those people in the room that you described, but the underlying input and pushback will always be that neighborhood. And so as a larger community, we have to express a desire to say we want incremental ability to have more housing in a neighborhood. The house scale, to Elizabeth's point earlier, right? It's that you can build a garage in that spot. So are you okay in your R1 districts having an ADU above it, mother-in-law above it, whatever? And that not changing the character of a neighborhood, you're just adding an additional family potentially, college student, mother-in-law, whatever. We have actively denied mother-in-law ADUs. Mom's either in a skilled nursing or she's got to go in the house with me. Well, that's an ADU and we can't permit it. So, I mean, we do have those requests, right? The fear is, well, what happens when mom passes and then it becomes a rental? Well, you have to believe most people are good and not that most people are bad and that renters are bad or anything else to kind of buy into that. But as a larger community, we have to express interest, and this is how we're going to incrementally increase housing. We're not just going to plan for it all to be big on the south end or future. We're going to incrementally expand what we have, open it up a little bit. Not a crazy amount. We're not saying that all the single family detached districts should permit triplexes, because I don't think politically that would stand. I think that there's no way he and I would have a job if we stood up and said that, right? Because there would be so much outreach. But if you can have a garage, can you have an ADU with it, right? That's what we're talking about. And that scale of it is what we're talking about. And we have to convince people not to fear. And so part of Elizabeth and kind of being here is what questions do you have about that? And how do you convince other people that that's okay? Because I think if you got all those people you described in a room, they'd say, yeah, do it. Because it's more opportunity. It's more opportunity economically. It's more opportunity for But until you get the person who's going to live next to the chair's point, you have to convince them that it's not the end of the world.
Let me just give you a little bit of help here, Andrea. You are doing incredible work on this project. You are really doing well. What we're saying now is, you bring the stakeholders together that are going to build these, and they become invested in it, and they will help you convince the community that it's right. You have your builders going out, telling all their employees, telling all their people. You have the realtors going out and everybody getting behind a project that you've got. You've gone as far as you can, I think, with convincing this committee what to do.
And if we
think-
have, that's what I need to hear tonight.
Yes, you have.
100% is that, because we've had the ADU discussion last year,
Well,
right?
you've given us the information, certainly.
Yeah.
Steve, you're not going to convince Steve until, no, I'm just using this as an example,
I'm good with
until the people aren't until the people aren't pissed off when he starts talking about something like this. And the way you do that is you get the bankers, the builders, the realtors, the architects all on with a plan and start assuaging their fears instead of telling us things that we already know. We already know there's a problem. We already know what a lot of the solutions are. But I think you need more cheerleaders. You have been an incredible cheerleader and you have gotten us this far. Now, bring in some other people, get some other people excited.
We can do that.
Well said. You must be a lawyer. You didn't say bring the lawyers in,
I'm
thank
hungry.
God.
We just screw things up.
And haven't you said that other communities in North Dakota have opened up some ADUs and there's only, I mean, you can count on one hand the number of requests
They're
they've
not the
got.
end all be all, right? They're not just going to flip overnight and we're going to get, because you still have to build them to building code, to your point of the other codes, right? If you can't take an existing garage and just slap a unit in it, that whole garage has, if the foundation doesn't meet code, you're ripping out a foundation and you're redoing the foundation. So it's not a cheap endeavor to just add an ADU to a garage unit. However, it is cheaper than building a brand new house on the south end on Greenfield development. So
But right now, we're not allowing any of it. So we've got a list of 7 opportunities here.
correct.
Are we saying push
The
it,
Grand
explore?
Forks Herald should put them out so the public can comment on them. Yes, that's, if the Grand Forks Herald's listening to this, please put it in the paper and give us some, let the community give us the feedback. Find out if the concerns we have are right or wrong.
We can go for a larger planning effort and get some more public input for sure.
But I agree with Alex again. This is twice in one night.
It hurts. We got a group for that.
But you gotta get the builders, the bankers, the realtors. I agree. Those are the people who are going to start it. Those are the people or developers and everybody who's going to say, this is a good thing.
And then
Because they're
we-
living in the big houses too. And do they want one next to them? You know?
But then when Andrea brings us the ADU thing, we can say, instead of, I think maybe, I just got done with 7 meetings where we talked with every one of the stakeholders here. And, we're going to be loaded with the real information. Good. Thank you. Sorry.
But I'm not cutting parking.
We'll get to that in a separate meeting. It'll be okay. Do you have any more questions for Elizabeth? She is
No.
our consultant with the code and kind of picking.
Elizabeth, thank you very much for your time and appreciate it and your efforts.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me this evening. It's a pleasure to hear how you think this could work in your community.
Thanks. All right. With that, monthly update. Oh, come on, Haley. Easy on us.
Tell us about a cottage cluster that we
No. Some good amount of approvals, some additions. Let's see, FedEx paving, you saw that last month, that was approved. A new apartment building and an Ideal Aerosmith addition is under review currently. Parking subcommittee met on October 21st. We kind of discussed the code changes in full and that was sent out to them to give their final review. Sign subcommittee, we still have put on pause until we can get some feedback from Dan Gosted. And some more definitions, and then of course the MPO update. Any questions?
Done. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Yep.
All right. Move to adjourn. Second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.